Tommy was once a successful man with a stable job, a loving family, and a strong faith in God. He believed he was walking in God's plan and that everything in his life would unfold in the best way possible. But life doesn't always go as we expect. Within a year, his company went bankrupt, causing him to lose his job, and his marriage crumbled when his wife decided to leave. Suddenly, he found himself lost, directionless, and hopeless. The days that followed felt like endless nights of despair. Tommy no longer wanted to go to church, no longer felt the desire to pray, and even began to question whether God truly cared for him. Each night, as darkness filled his empty apartment, he sat in silence, drowning in loneliness. He whispered, "God, where are you? If you really have a plan for me, why has my life become such a mess?" But there was no answer. Day by day, negative thoughts consumed his mind. People around him started talking. Maybe Tommy did something wrong and now God is punishing him. The whispers, the pitying glances, and even the judgmental comments only made him feel more alone. Tommy tried reading the Bible, but the words felt empty. Every time he attempted to pray, all he felt was silence. A dark voice echoed in his mind. God doesn't care about you anymore. You failed. Then one day, Tommy received a call from Jack, an old friend from church. It had been a long time since anyone had reached out to him with genuine concern. "Jack, Tommy, I haven't seen you at church in a while. How are you?" "I'm fine," Tommy answered flatly, though deep down he knew he wasn't fine at all. "I know things have been really tough for you, but Tommy, don't you remember? God never abandons his people." "I don't see God anywhere, Jack. I've prayed, I've tried to seek him, but nothing has changed. Maybe I did something wrong." "That's not true, Tommy. Do you remember Job? He lost everything, but in the end, God restored him even greater than before. Don't you think God can do the same for you?" Tommy remained silent. A part of him wanted to dismiss those words as mere optimism, but another part of him felt a tiny flicker of hope. That night, for the first time in months, Tommy decided to try again. He prayed, not to ask God to change his circumstances, but simply to seek peace. When he opened the Bible, the words came alive in a way they hadn't before. And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him. Romans 8 verse 28. He didn't fully understand why everything had happened, but he made a decision. He would trust God anyway. Over time, Tommy slowly found his way back to church. He felt comforted by the warmth of his brothers and sisters in Christ. They didn't criticize him for his absence. Instead, they embraced him and said, "We've been praying for you." For the first time in a long while, Tommy felt he wasn't alone. One day, Tommy received a job offer from a new company, but instead of feeling excited, he felt uncertain. The position wasn't the same as before. The salary was lower. The environment was unfamiliar. Tommy stood at a crossroads: trust God and step forward in faith, or remain stuck in fear. Remembering Jack's words, Tommy told himself, "I will not live as if I don't know how this story ends. I know that God has a good plan for me." So Tommy took the job. At first it wasn't easy. He had to adjust to a completely different field, work with new colleagues, and often wondered if he had made the right decision. But as time went on, he began to see change. He adapted quickly, earned the respect of his coworkers, and most importantly, started to feel a renewed sense of purpose. A year later, Tommy was promoted. His new job turned out to be even better than his previous one, opening doors he never expected. But the greatest blessing wasn't career success, it was the peace of God that had returned to his heart. He realized that God had never left him, even when he thought he was silent. Finally, Tommy understood. Through it all, God had been working. Even in his darkest moments, even when he doubted, God was still writing his story. The hardships were not the end. They were just part of a bigger picture. Tommy learned that God never abandons his children, and this chapter of his life was never meant to be the end. As he reflected, Tommy knew these truths were now etched into his heart. God never abandons us, even when we can't see him. Psalm 34. We are not defined by our failures or our past. Isaiah 61 verse 3. Faith means trusting God even when we don't understand. Romans 8:28. Our circumstances don't determine our future, God's plan does. Jeremiah 29:11. You may be in a difficult chapter right now, but remember, the story isn't over. Trust God because he's not done with you yet.